Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Nuraliza for chairing this session, and not to forget, I should thank Dr. Ain and also Dr. Zuhaili for facilitating this. And in this session, I'm going to share the traumatic approach to teaching in the era of COVID-19. Let me show you the slide. All right, so okay. All right, so basically this is the title, the trauma-informed approach to teaching in the era of the COVID-19. So this approach that I'm going to share in this session, it is applicable for both offline and online settings, because it is not really about pedagogy, but then how you should manage the students, how we can best manage the students who are affected by the COVID-19, because they might be having kind of like emotional disruptions and all those kind of things. So as an educator, we can employ this trauma-informed approach so that they can benefit from our teaching better than when they are not in the traumatized state. Yeah, all right. So this is a quick fact, yeah. A quick fact about children in about children in the United States, because it says like nearly half of the children in the United States, or almost 35 million kids, have experienced at least one or more types of serious childhood trauma. So I was trying to find statistic for the children, Malaysian children with traumatic experience, but I cannot find one. And this perhaps happened because of two reasons. The first one is perhaps because I don't try hard enough, or perhaps it is because we still do not really reveal, or we still do not have statistic of how many children in our country face this kind of trauma, which reflects our attitude and our stance towards this towards this phenomenon. But then in the United States, in the UK, for example, this they they really care about this trauma problem faced by the children. So we have here in the UK and in the US, we even have the trauma-informed school to help the students improve their emotional well-being and become more focused in the learning. Right? When I look online for Malaysian statistic, I only found I only found statistic for children who are being abused, which says that almost 2,000 children being abused every year. And abuse can be one of the factors that cause the trauma, right? So based on the statistic, you can imagine how many students are actually facing this trauma problem. But as teachers, do we care about that? Or even if we care, how we are going to treat the students who face this trauma, right? Because we cannot treat them as how we treat students who do not face trauma. Right. So it says here 2,000 children are being abused every year. It's a huge number, and this is a reported case of abuse, and I'm very sure there are many others who are not reported. And more importantly, we should know that this trauma is not only caused by abuse. Children can have traumatic experience even when they see an accident, or when they lose their father, when they lose their mother, and all those kind of things. So there are many factors contributing to traumatic experience which affect the students emotionally. All right, so this is some of the capture that I get from the Malaysian newspaper. Jenayah seksual kanak-kanak membimbangkan. So these are all the factors which can lead to trauma among children. Talian kes dera anak meningkat 50% sepanjang kawalan pergerakan di musim COVID-19. So this is one of the reason why suddenly scholars in the West, they started talking about trauma-informed approach again during this era of COVID-19. It is not something new. It has been a national agenda in the United States, and it is also a famous approach in the United Kingdom. But during the era of this COVID-19, this trauma-informed approach is being talked about again, and people and scholars, the top management, they are urging their staff to use this trauma-informed approach to teaching because of this kind of things, abuse, family problems. They increase when people are in lockdown, because they meet each other every day, they have financial problems and all those kind of things, and this lead to the traumatic experience to the children especially. Yeah? So that's a brief introduction of the background. Yeah, why this trauma informed approach, why we should care about this trauma informed approach in the era of the COVID-19. So defining trauma. What is trauma? It is a response to a negative external event or series of events which surpasses one's ordinary coping skills. So basically, trauma is actually our response to the events that we cannot cope when we face the event, and this thing, it might be trivial for us as an adult. For example, if I witness an accident, if I've lost my loved ones, maybe that won't cause a trauma to me because I'm an adult. I can manage my emotion well. I know where to resort for help and all this kind of thing. But in this case, we are talking about children. We are talking about learners, about school learners, for example, or about people who are already fragile. They will be having problem to process this negative external event, and because of this, they cannot cope with it, and this trauma will be haunting them forever if they are not if we do not help them to overcome to break this trauma. Yeah, this is possible causes of trauma among school children in the US. Yeah, the top three. Maltreatment. So maltreatment, for example, when the father, the mother become violent to the kids or ignore the kids. And last time in Malaysia, we have one. When I was searching, I found a case where a kid was locked in a cat cage for months and not given food and all those kind of things. Those are an example of maltreatment as well. And witnessing violence. This is also very important. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to happen in the family of the children. Yeah. For example, witnessing violence on the road, witnessing violence happens in the neighbor, a family, and all those kind of things that can also cause trauma for the students. And of course, the loss of the loved ones, which is very, very relevant in this era of the COVID-19. For example, they lost their parents, they lost their siblings, they lost their grandfather, grandmother because of COVID-19. So there are definitely children or our students who are affected by this problem, and most probably cause trauma in them, right? Okay, so this is the effects of trauma on students. So we can see that here stress can severely impact a student's ability to learn. Of course, when you are stressed, when you have traumatized experience, you will not be able to focus on your learning, function in social environments. You can the way you socialize will also be affected because you are not emotionally well, you are emotionally fragile, you are having stress. So those are some of the possible effects of the trauma, especially on students who are still young and who cannot process what happens to them and manage their emotions and behavior. So basically, these people, they cannot manage their emotions and behavior, and they started showing escalating behavior in the classroom in front of us, who is their authoritative. And one thing that we need to remember, when we are at school, we are considered an authoritative to the students. And the students who have loss of control in their life because of the traumatic stress, they usually do not like the authority figure, because they will feel trapped, because they know that this authority figure will cause problem when they show escalating behavior and all those kind of things. So that's one of the reason why, as an educator, we need to be informed of the trauma approach to teaching, so that we can be a better authoritative figure to our students, right? Okay. And these children and these people who suffer from traumatic stress, they are always living in a constant state of emergency. You know, you can just imagine when you have an emergency for 5 minutes, for example, that you do not know where to ask for help, that you do not know what to do, that you feel hopeless, you feel helpless. So you can imagine how it affects you emotionally, how it will make you feel exhausted, and how how it will weak the whole body when you are in emergency. But these people who face this traumatic stress, they live in a constant state of emergency. So you can imagine what they have in mind, how they feel about people around them, how they feel about themselves, how tiring they are to live in a constant state of emergency. So it is very, very important for us to have the empathy feeling, so that we can be their friends. This is the most important things in the trauma informed approach, that we need to be their friends. I'll be talking about this later. Right. So trauma affects children in so many different ways. And some kids are reactive while others are reserved. So this is one of the reasons why teachers need to be trained, need to be informed of the trauma-informed approach to teaching. They need to know that some kids are reactive, some kids will show anger, some kids will show escalating behavior, some kids will show tantrums and all those kind of thing. But then in some other children, they will reserve to themselves. They will refuse to talk to other people. They will refuse to pay attention. They will refuse to seek help and all this kind of thing. What they do is just sitting down on the chair, for example, and not to talk to anybody. And I'm very sure, as an educator, it is not uncommon for us to see our students who have this kind of problematic behavior. For example, I'm very sure throughout years of teaching experience, you'll be seeing problematic students who suddenly burst anger, perhaps who suddenly shout at people, and all those kind of thing. And then you'll be seeing also students who are reserved, when the students, they just don't want to talk to anybody. And even when you try to talk to the students, they don't want to talk to you. They are being reserved to themselves. So these kind of students, regardless they tell us that they have traumatic stress, we need to try to find the problems, that we need to try to find what happens to them which cause this reactive behavior or this reserved behavior, so that we know what to do, right? And this is another interesting fact. Research found that students in poverty have been conditioned to suppress their pain, and it often manifests as anger. Students who are poor, they are accustomed to suppressing their pain. When they are in pain, when they are hungry, they don't share it with others. They reserve it to themselves. They suppress the pain, and because of that, what we see from them is anger. They are actually having a painful experience at home, but when they go to school, they will be expressing anger. All right, they suddenly become angry to teachers. They suddenly become angry to their friends. And if the educators are not well informed about this trauma stress, things will get worse, because the educators might scold the students, the discipline teacher, the school management, they might punish the students. And when you punish the students, you need to remember, when we punish the students, we need to remember that people who suffer from traumatic stress, they have problem with authoritative figure. And when we punish them, it just gives another example of how authoritative figure is not helpful to them. So this change will continue, and because of that, we will never be able to break this traumatic cycle, and this is going to be problematic for them. All right. Okay. So this is one of the poster that I took from the trauma school in the UK. It's very interesting here. We need to catch these children as they are falling, not after they have fallen. So this is one of the reasons why we teachers, why we educators need to equip ourselves with trauma-informed teaching skills, so that we can help these children before they fall. In the process when they show tantrum, in the process when they show their problematic behavior, it is where that we need to intervene. And in the second half of my presentation, in the second half of my sharing session, I'm going to show some best practices in helping to catch these children, so that they're not going to fall. All right. Right. So basically, the first half of my presentation just now, it's about establishing the needs for trauma-informed approach to teaching, especially during the era of the COVID-19, because people are having problems. The abuse cases are increasing, and all those kind of things. All right, now we have come to the second half of the sharing session, where I'll be giving a more specific characteristic of trauma-informed approach to teaching, the best practices which you can consider if you have this kind of problem. Yeah, in the UK and in the US, the concern is more towards the school children, because these people, they are vulnerable, they are young, and their brain is in the process of development. So we try to help these children, but I'm very sure what I'm going to share in this session is also applicable to us as a university lecturer, because the best practices is going to be the same, and I'm very sure we also have students at university level who face this traumatic stress. So by the end of this session, I just hope that what I share in the second half of the session, it will create a little bit of sensitivity in us, the educators, to face our students, especially if they show problematic behavior, or if they're being too reserved in the classroom. Yeah, I'll be talking about it in the second half of the presentation. Right, so towards a trauma-informed approach to teaching, becoming a trauma-informed educator means becoming more acutely aware, yeah, of how trauma alters the lens through which its victim sees their world, and building practices that honor that reality. So this is what is expected from educators, by people who by the proponent of the trauma-informed approach to teaching. Yeah, we need educators to be more aware of what's happening to their students, and this awareness should be focused on how the trauma have altered the lens through the victim see their world, which means we need to be aware how the traumatic experience faced by the students have changed the way they see their world. For example, when they are abused, for example, they will definitely be scared of authoritative figure, because they won't be abused by their peers. They will be bullied by their peers. Yeah? So when they are abused, definitely they are abused by people who is more authoritative than them, people who have more power than them. And because of that, their perceptions of this authoritative figure is always scary. It's always problematic. Perhaps when they see authoritative figure, they will be always seeing that punishment is coming, abuse is coming, shouting, yelling, and all those kind of thing is coming to them. So when they go to school, the teachers, we are the authoritative figure. And then if they are reserved, for example, if they don't want to talk to us, for example, we need to be able to understand where they comes from. Yeah, for those who suffer from trauma experience, perhaps we should have reminded ourselves that these people, they don't want to talk to us, perhaps because they suffer traumatic experience, they are scared of the authoritative figure, and because of that, instead of punishing them, instead of humiliating them for not wanting to take part in our classroom activities, we should be able to honor that reality. We need to try to understand them that they do this because they have seen the world differently than us, right? And because of that, we need to build practices which can help us and them manage that reality and improve the reality that they perceive in their world, right? Okay, so by being sensitive to students' past and current experiences with trauma, educators can break the cycle of the trauma. So this is the main aim of the trauma-informed approach. We want to break the cycle of trauma. We don't want them to be scared of the authoritative figure, their mother and their father at home. And when they come to the school, we don't want them to be afraid of teachers. They're authoritative. We want to break the cycle by being their friends, so that we can prevent the traumatization and engage them in learning so that they can find success in school, right? I think one of the useful concept to talk when we talk about trauma-informed approach is the concept of school as a safe space. So university as a safe space, yeah, which is like still quite new, especially in Malaysia settings. I haven't seen any proper research conducted about safe space in the university level. So that's why I feel like we have a long way to go in catching up with these developed countries about this safe space and trauma-informed approach in teaching. All right. Okay, at the heart of these approaches, at the heart of these traumatic informed approaches is the belief that students' actions are a direct result of their experiences. Yeah, what happened in the classroom, how they behave in school, definitely happened because of what they experience in their life. Yeah, for example, if they show that they are hot tempered, those kind of thing must be influenced by what they have gone through in their life, the way they are educated at home, the way they are treated at home, the way their peers when they socialize out of school behave. Those are all the result of their direct experiences. And when students act out or disengage, when the students give us problematic behavior, the questions that we should ask is, what's wrong with you? Do you think what's wrong with you? But this is not the question that we should ask. Most of the time, that's why I highlighted this question in red, which means that you should not proceed with these questions. When your students show escalating behavior towards you, especially in this era of this COVID-19, when they have so many problems at home, when they show anger, when they don't want to talk to you, don't ask what's wrong with you. Why we should not ask what's wrong with you? Apa masalah kau ni? We should not ask them apa masalah kau, even though we ask in a in a soft tone. For example, apa masalah kau ni? That's not a good way of asking. What's wrong with you is not a good way of asking, because when we ask what's wrong with you, apa masalah kau ni, we are actually blaming them for their behavior when they are already in the fragile state of emotion. So we don't want to blame them. We should not ask what's wrong with you. This is not my recommendation. Yeah, this is based on my reading of the experts of the trauma-informed approach, most of the time when these researchers, when these scholars, when these teachers ask what's wrong with you, it will often result in power struggles. Students, they don't like to be asked what's wrong with you because it is negatively connotated questions. So what we should ask instead is, what happened to you? So instead of asking what's wrong with you, we ask what happened to you. Apa yang berlaku? Apa yang dah berlaku dengan awak, ya? So instead of apa masalah awak, apa yang tak kena dengan awak, kita tanya apa yang dah berlaku. What happened to you? So this wording it might sound trivial, it might sound not important for us if we are not in the trauma, if we are not in kind of like fragile state of emotion. But for people who suffer from trauma, for people who are in the state of fragile emotion, choice of words that they listen that they listen give a huge impact to their emotional well-being, because these people who are these students who suffered from traumatic stress, they always interpret things in a negative amplifier, and because of that we need to avoid any single things which can help them to interpret our words, our gestures negatively. What's wrong with you? Definitely blame the student. But what happened to you shows that we are interested to know more about them. We are interested to listen to them. Yeah. It is very, very important to be careful with the choice of words that we use when we talk about these fragile people. I'm sharing my experience here. This is not this is out of context, but it will show you how the people who are fragile with their emotion, they can be affected badly. Last time I was talking to a depressed person, and she was crying and crying and crying, and then when we asked what happened to you, and then this lady, she said, I was a student at the university, and then I don't know how to ride a motorbike or motorcycle, and every morning I will ask for my friend to bring me to the lecture hall, in her motorbike. And one day, her friend asked her, when are you going to take your motorcycle license? And that question caused her to cry for a week because she interpreted it negatively. She thinks that her friend doesn't want to carry her on her motorbike anymore, when the question is about when are you going to take your own motorcycle license. So this is an example of how people who are fragile, who are emotionally vulnerable, they try to interpret things in a negative way, with a negative amplifier. And because of that, we need to be very, very careful when talking to them, especially teachers. We will spend, for example, 6 hours in school with them. We will spend the whole period of 2 hours with the students. So within this 2 hours period of our lecture, of our tutorial, there will be many possible things that might be interpreted negatively by the student. So we need to be very, very careful, right? So, okay, so this is the trauma-informed schools in the UK, which I talked about at the very beginning of my session. It says like we try to be passionate. We are passionate about improving learning, mental health, and quality of people for children and young people. On average, it takes a child 10 years to receive help from a mental health. Okay. All right, so the Center for Mental Health. So basically, it takes a child 10 years to receive help from a mental health practitioner. So these are, you can check this website. It's famous in the UK and it's famous in the US. And in the US, it has been a national agenda since long time ago. This article, if you see, it's written in 2012. And in Malaysia, I remember when I was 2012, I have not even heard of this trauma sensitive school movement, trauma-informed approach. Maybe because I was a student at that time, so I don't really care about this kind of thing. But when I was doing my teacher education, I have not been exposed to trauma-informed approach as part of the teaching pedagogy as well. So as part of the pedagogy as well. So I think it is time that we need to expose our student teachers to trauma-informed approach, so that they are ready to face the real world when they go to school. Because there will be children in school, there will be students at university who face this kind of traumatic experience. Right. So this is the main gist of what you should do, the best practices of what we should do, when we become a trauma-informed educator. Always remember to develop relationship before content. All right. This is, many teachers, many educators, we care about curriculum. We care about the student score. We care about whether they get A, whether they fail. We care about their pointer to the extent that we forget to develop a relationship with them. We, most of the time, within that constraint of 1 hour and 2 hour lectures, we try to give as much input as possible, and we do not try to develop the relationship with our student. So at the heart of this trauma-informed approach, it says that we need to develop relationship before content. So the priority is developing the relationship. And how we can do that? This is one of the best practices recommended by the trauma-informed scholars. Yeah, we need to talk to the students, the students who are facing traumatic stress, for at least 2 minutes a day for 10 days in a row about topics unrelated to academics or behavior. Right? It says what we need to take in here is that continuously talking to them. For example, in this example, 10 days in a row. You cannot simply talk one day this week, one day next week, one day the week after. It won't be helpful. The students need a friend to talk to every day, at least for 10 days, for them to build trust, so that they can be our friends. They try to talk to students at least for 2 minutes, but do not talk about academic things and do not talk about their problematic behavior. Then maybe we can talk about their hobby, we can talk about their favorite singer, and all this kind of thing, right? And we need to repeat this trust building strategy several times throughout the year, especially after the student exhibited anger or frustration, and after school vacations and long weekends. It is very important to spend this 2 minutes quality time every day with the students after school vacations and long weekends, because most of the children, most of the school kids, most of our students, when they have school vacations, when they have long weekends, they will go and spend time with their family. And if family is the source of their traumatic stress, this will be very, very harmful to their emotional well-being. They no longer have this safe space at the university after the vacations, because they need to go home, they need to empty the campus. So they go home, and that's where their trauma develop again. And because of that, every time we have long semester break and all those kind of thing, we need to be ready to start again, to talk to them again, so that if they suffer from traumatic stress at home, when they come to the university, they do not only have safe space, but they have this authoritative figure who are willing to listen to them, who are willing to be their friends, so that we can alter the way they see reality, so that they no longer see authoritative figure as problematic, and because of that they will be interested to share their problems, their experience, their emotions, their feelings, and everything, right? And we also need to avoid authoritative directives. This is not useful at all when we talk to our students in the classroom. When we talk to students outside the classroom, authoritative directives they are not useful at all. For example, you tell the students, line up, picked it up, see me at 4 p.m. You have 2 weeks to finish your assignment. Don't give me any excuse. All these examples here, and I'm very sure you can reflect back on your own experience. What kind of authoritative directives have I given to my students? Because this authoritative directive, they just affirmed the belief of the students facing traumatic stress, that authoritative figure, their directive, they are controlling, that the students are powerless, that the students need to listen to this authoritative figure, and this might just disturb their emotion, because this will bring them back to the experience where they have problematic experience with the traumatic figure somewhere in their home, for example. So we don't want to be an educator who keep giving authoritative directives to students, because the students will not like this, and it will only remind the students of how bad and authoritative is, right? So we need to try not to give this authoritative figure. It might not be important if you talk to people who are emotionally strong, but trust me, when you if you have friends who suffer from depression, for example, if you have friends who suffer from this traumatic stress, for example, trust me, every single word, every sentence that you utter, it might be interpreted negatively by them. It might cause them emotional problem. They might not even cry in front of you. Their teachers, they might not even cry in front of you, their friends, but they might be crying somewhere behind the bush, in their room. I have experience with this, talking to people who are emotionally vulnerable, and it's going to be problematic if we don't care about our diction, our choice of words, right? And it is also important to always embed choice in the direction to prevent poor reactions. All right. So for example, instead of saying line up, what we should say is, do you want to be in the front of the line or the back of the line? You remember, if you can see in these examples here, how long do you think it will take you to finish this assignment? Is it possible for you to submit this assignment by the end of the month? If you can see from this example shown on my screen now, we are actually trying to give a sense of power to the students who perceive themselves as powerless, who perceive themselves that they should always listen to the authoritative figure, regardless they like it or not. So if you see all these examples, they are worded so that the hearer, the students, they feel that they have some sort of control in their life, that they can choose whether they want to be in the front line or the back of the line, whether they can give suggestion when they want to finish this assignment. So basically, we are trying to empower them, to tell them that you have power in controlling your life, you have power in deciding what is best for you. These are all the message that we are trying to send to the students when we ask this kind of question. So it's very, very important to word our instruction carefully when talking to these students facing traumatic stress. All right. When teachers give authoritative directives, it typically ends in power struggle and students escalating behavior. Right? For example, students will be having power struggle. They will feel that they are being controlled, that they need to conform to what authoritative figure has said, and this power struggle is not good. It will only make them having emotional problem, and this is the thing that I was telling you just now. These traumatized students, they have experienced a loss of control in their lives, and we need to give this control back to them. So that's why we need to give them choice. We need to give them enough opportunity to say what is best for them through 1 hour period that we spend with them in the classroom, for example, because we don't want them to trigger. We don't want them to have this kind of feeling that I'm being abused again, I'm being forced again. So we need to avoid being too authoritative, right? In the situation where a traumatized student keeps tapping his or her pencil, how should we approach him, right? Maybe the audience, if you want to share with me, in the situation where your traumatized students keeps tapping his or her pencil on the table, what is the best way in dealing with this situation? Maybe any of the audience you want to share with me, or Dr. Eliza?
Perhaps we ask what happened to you?
What happened to you? All right, but Dr. Eliza, yeah, definitely it's not wrong, yeah, because instead of asking what's wrong with you, we ask what happened to you. But maybe I should give more context. This happened in the classroom, where 30 of them are in the classroom. I saw someone say, "Do you need help?" Yeah. Um, I think what happened to you, do you need help, is a very good approach when we are one to one. Yeah? But when they are in class where 30 of their friends are there, if we try to talk to them when we are in the class and witnessed by their friends, this will not be favorable to the students, because it seems like, yeah, talk to him when he or she is alone is very good. That's where we need to talk about it when he or she is alone. Yeah. But if he keeps tapping the pencil in the classroom and disturbing our teaching process, the scholar suggests that the best way that we should do in this case, because he is also witnessed by the other classmates, we don't want to do anything which make him or her feels humiliated. So the best way suggested by the scholars is that the teacher can write, "Please stop tapping," on a piece of paper, put it gently on the student desk without his or her peers noticing, and then give him or her space by walking away quickly. So basically, by doing this, you are trying to tell the student that I'm your friend, I'm not going to humiliate you, read my message quickly, and don't let other people know that I have been talking to you. And because of that, the students, the scholars suggest that the students will have a better way of dealing with the escalating behavior, because because the teachers present themselves as his or her friends, basically kind of like, "Come on, I'm your friend, take a look at this, read it," and then and he or she walk away quickly, and the students will be having a favorable reactions towards this approach, instead of us asking what happened to you in front of the classmates. So actually, being a trauma informed educator requires lots of practices and sensitivity, because we will never know how they feel. So they might feel more humiliated when we talk about them in front of the class. So try to do this without try to talk to them about their behavior without their peers noticing, because it can be embarrassing to them, because they might interpret that the teacher is trying to humiliate him or her, right? When possible, the teacher can also give extended time for the student to comply with the direction. This one really works. You need to give them extended time. For example, please stop tapping 5 minutes from now, instead of "please stop tapping now." And this one works. I have tried with my son. For example, when he's playing handphone, I'll be saying like, "Fateh, stop playing handphone now," and then he will be having power struggle. He doesn't want to listen to me. He was like, "No, I want to play." But if I said, "Fateh, you have 5 more minutes to play play with the handphone, and after that give me back the handphone. I will come back to you in 5 minutes." And after that 5 minutes, when I go to my son again, he easily hands in the handphone to me. If you do not believe me in this, you can try with your children. Give them extended time, and you will be seeing that they are much more willing to listen to you when they already have the extended time, because they already managed to prepare themselves to what's going to happen in 5 minutes later, right? So basically, the students, they can decompress and they can respond rationally, and this will avoid power struggles. Basically, they can prepare themselves of what's happening, what's going to happen, right? And they convey respect and transparency by providing the reason behind each direction. For example, this is very important as well. For example, instead of saying no backpacks on the floor, I don't want to trip and fall. This is one of the not the best way for teachers to tell the students. When the students have a backpacks on the floor and the student pass by that floor, and if the student say no backpacks on the floor, I don't want to trip and fall, this is not good for the students who are emotionally fragile. This is not good for students who face traumatic stress. But what the teacher should say, remember, what the teachers should do is that they need to provide reason behind each direction. Alright, so in this case, a better way to give instruction to students is, oh dear, I hope I don't fall. I have a bad knee. Could you please move your backpack? So if you can see here, the reasons come first. Alright? Oh dear, I'm so worried I'm so worried that I will fall. I have a bad knee. So could you please move your backpack? By giving reason first, the students will understand the context and they will understand why this authoritative figure asked them to do this thing, instead of simply instructing them. If we instruct them again, we just confirm to them that they have no control in their life. They need to listen to the authoritative figure. So that's why we need to start by giving the reasons first. For example, the SISMA, in the last day I should key in your assignment marks in the system is on 23rd of June. So can I have your assignment by 20th of June? So this will make the students able to rationalize why we want the assignment on 20th of June, because we need to key in the marks by 23rd of June. And this kind of thing will make them feel more willing to conform to us and avoid them taking our instructions negatively. Right. Stating the reason first assured that the student knew the context and necessity of the demand. So because of this, when they know that what we demand from them is necessity, we help them to see where we come from, and this will create a better reaction from them. They won't be having power struggle if we tell them the reason why they need to listen to our demand, basically, right? And of course, if you see the example just now, it start with, oh dear, you need to be employing humanistic approach. You need to be very you need to be talking like you're talking to your close friend, perhaps to your spouse, that you don't even want to hurt their feelings, right? And then I think this is going to be the last one. Promote predictability and consistency. This is also important. Not knowing what is coming next can put anyone on high alert, especially traumatized students. At the very beginning of my presentation, I have told you that these traumatized students, they are always in the state of emergency. So not knowing what is coming next to them is very taxing for them. It's it is very problematic for them, that it will increase their level of alert because they do not know what is coming next. Alright, so as an educator, we should preview any changes to the normal routine ahead of time, so that the students will be prepared to face the changes in the class, and this can elicit a calmer response. For example, you can just simply say at the very beginning of the class, we cannot go to the computer lab for the second half of our tutorial today because the lab is under maintenance. So the students can be psychologically prepared that they are not going to move to the computer lab for the day because the lab is under maintenance. So it's not that these people, you need to remember, they are fragile, they have loss of control in their life. We don't want them, when they expect to move to the computer lab, and then suddenly we say no, we cannot go to computer lab because it's not working. At that time, the level of disappointment, the level of power struggle, the level of stress will increase easily because they are already fragile in the emotion, with the emotion, right? So basically, promote predictability and promote consistency. So we also need to make it explicit. When we like them, when we like their work, when we are happy to them, make it explicit. For example, you say, "Great work. I'll be back to check on you." And the student, if you say something like this, for example, "Great work. I'll be back to check on you." This is not useful, yeah, because the student has no way of predicting how long they need to wait, and usually the teacher may forget to return to them altogether. So, for example, if you walk around the class and then you see the students and then you say, "Oh, great work. I'll be back to check on you." This is not useful because the students whom you promise, the students with fragile emotion that you have promised, they will be having anxiety, waiting for when are you coming back to check. And if you suddenly forget to come back, you will cause disappointment to them. So a better way of giving predictable attention is saying this: "I'm going to check on you in 10 minutes. Come tap me on the shoulder when the time goes off," right? So basically, you give a predictable attention to them. If you don't, "I will come back in 10 minutes," basically. So they will be waiting in 10 minutes. So they know what's going to happen in these 10 minutes. They know that if the teachers do not come back in 10 minutes, they can just go and tap on the teacher's shoulder. "Hey, it's time for you to come and check on me." So this will make them feel more valued, more emotionally stable because they have this kind of predictive attention, right? And then the student can better tolerate uncomfortable feelings when they know help and a positive interaction are coming. So that's why it is very important to say that "I'll come back in 10 minutes" because we want the students to know that help and positive interaction from the authoritative figure is coming their way. So they are not helpless, right? Telling the student what will happen and when, and always following through, establishes the teacher as a consistent, reliable adult. And this is what we want to develop. This perception is what we want to develop in the students. They usually will be having problematic conceptualization of adult because of their traumatic stress, and we want to develop this reliable characteristic of authoritative figure at school as a teacher. All right, and then we need to give supportive feedback to reduce negative thinking. I talked about this at the very beginning of my presentation, that traumatized students, they usually interpret information through a negative amplifier. So we need to be very careful with our feedback. For example, when you say, "Please correct the first problem," the student might interpret the instruction, "You are stupid." So this is going to be problematic for us as an educator dealing with students facing trauma. We say something else without the intention of telling them that they are stupid, but they might interpret it as "You are stupid," right? And then, or the student might report that the teacher screamed at him or her when the teacher was really using a calm tone. Yeah. So basically, lots of possible problems that might occur when we have traumatized students in our classroom. So it is always helpful to smile and explicitly say when you are happy with them. But the problem is what we need to do when we have to correct them. We cannot always praise them. We cannot always talk positively about them if they make something wrong in the assignments, for example. What we should do when we need to correct the student, yeah? So when we have to correct the student, it is very, very useful for us to use this positive sandwich approach, starting and ending with a positive comment. Yeah, this is sandwich approach. Positive comment. The first layer is positive, and then inside is in negative, and then you cover it with another positive comment. That's why they call it positive sandwich approach. For example, you say, I love how you remembered the formula, but you made a small calculation error there. But great job at getting the problem solved. Can you see the sandwich? Positive, you start with positive, and then you give the negative feedback, and then you close it with positive again. By having this positive sandwich approach, the students will feel more appealing to listen to you. They will feel the self-worth is there because this authoritative figure, whom they always perceive as problematic, now value themselves, value what they do in the class. Right? So this is the last slide, the notes for teachers. When you work with traumatized students, you need to know that it can be very overwhelming. So you yourself need to manage your personal and professional stress. And you need to recognize that change happens very slowly. If you want to change this traumatic student behavior, you need to tell yourself that this change will happen very slowly. So you need to be very patient. And you need to know that you may never see the outcomes of your efforts. So if in the end, after trying for months, for years, and you don't see any improvement coming from the students, you yourself should not feel stressful, because it is possible that you will never see the outcomes of your efforts, right? So you should also trust that our simple compassionate gestures are important elements of helping young people in healing and surviving. You also need to know your limits. If you have tried your best and if you cannot commit, for example, speaking to them 2 minutes for 10 days in a row, you need to get help from other people to do that for you. Do not push yourself until you reach your own limits. And you also need to improve your understanding of trauma and secondary trauma. You need to take a time out, and you also need to seek support from co-workers, family, and friends. So this is one of the issue in the trauma-informed school as well, that teachers are very motivated to help the students, but in the end, when they cannot help the students, they themselves having trauma, they themselves having traumatic stress, they themselves having psychological problem. So we don't want that. So basically, remember these notes with you, and keep reminding yourself in your effort to help your traumatized students. Right, I think that's all for further reading. You can take a look at these further readings if you are interested to know more about trauma-informed approach in teaching. And these are some of the references that I refer to when I prepared this slide. Again, by having this session, I'm not presenting myself as an expert, training teachers or educators about how to employ this trauma-informed approach in teaching. But what I hope from this sharing session is that I have successfully developed, if not much, a bit of your sensitivity towards becoming an trauma-informed educator. And I hope it is applicable in your settings. And if you want to keep in touch with me, yes, please visit my YouTube channel, Radzuan Rashid, and also I'm on Facebook, Adi Radzuan, and I also operate a Facebook page, Research Sharing by Rashid, where I usually post something useful related to research. If you want to like that Facebook page, right? So I think that's all, Dr. Liza. Thank you so much for having me today.
Alright, thank you so much, Dr. Razwan. Okay, very interesting topic and discussion, and indeed is a eye-opening topic, especially very closely related to what actually we're facing nowadays during the COVID-19 era. Perhaps we're facing numbers of students that perhaps experience this traumatized experience, etc. Okay, perhaps the next one we're going to go to the QA or question and answer session. We have numbers of questions asked by the audience. Okay, the first one is actually from the Dr. Hadijah. Okay, Dr. Hadijah asks, what can we do to support academicians who are also affected by COVID-19, as what I can see little effort are taken to look at our well-being. Some of us are suffering in silence when we have to use online platform that might be unknown to us before, but we have to use in teaching and learning now due to COVID-19. Yet, what I can see is more effort are given to support students. are we overlooking the fact that academician also suffering?
Right. I totally agree with what has been raised up by Dr. Hadija. It's very true that in our attempt to help the students, we overlook the lecturers. But in this case, it's always apply the same principle. If the students need to be helped by their authoritative, we lecturers need to be helped by our authoritative. In this case, our registrar, our academic association, the top management at the university. So it always goes hand in hand. We are the authoritative figure to our students, and we definitely have our authoritative figure at the university, and this authoritative figure definitely need to be made aware that we also need help. So basically, we need to have a sharing session with them as well about this trauma informed approach, so that they are aware of the emotional problem that might affect the lecturers who are also struggling in this time of COVID-19. Right.
Right. Next, the second one is from Muhammad, I believe. Okay. Meaning to say, we have to give some space, time to our student instead of giving direct instruction to them. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Basically, just now when I talk about giving directive authoritative, it's not only about giving time for them to comply, but also you need to give reason why you give that instruction. And then of course after that you will need to give time for them to comply with our demand, and those two things. And then of course the most important thing is how you word your instruction. For example, line up is also an instruction, but then would you like to be in front line or at the back of the line? It is also an instruction, but it is indirectly done through interrogative mode. So basically giving context, word your instruction properly, in a way that sounds very friendly, give reasons, and then give time for them to comply to our demand.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Then for the third question from Muhammad Asif, they ask about what role can teacher-student rapport play in decreasing the anxiety level of traumatized students?
Yeah, definitely. At the heart of this approach is about developing the rapport. It's about developing the relationship, because when you develop the relationship, because one thing that we need to remember is that these traumatized students, they are scared of authoritative figure, especially when they are the victim of domestic abuse, for example. Parents, mothers, those are their authoritative figure at home, and they have problems with these people. And it is at school, at the university, that they hope to find this safe space, and we teachers as the authoritative figure in this space should develop the rapport, should develop the relationship with them, so that they have a different conceptualization of an authoritative figure, so that we can alter what the problematic conceptualization that they have at home. We can alter it when they are at the university, and because of that, this will help them to deal with their trauma, that not all authoritative figure are abusive, for example. So in answering that question, developing rapport is definitely very, very important to manage the students' anxiety, and it is at the heart of the trauma-informed approach. Eliza, I need to send my son to school, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope.
Actually, Dr. Azan already informed us earlier that he need to send his children to school. For perhaps we are very glad and thankful to have you, Dr. Azwan.
Yeah.
Perhaps we stop for the session until now. Okay, is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I would like to convey our gratitude for joining us today, Dr. Azwan. Okay,
Yeah.
perhaps you want to say anything?
Thank you for the sharing session. I'm happy sharing my limited knowledge on this, and it make me think as well. And it's also good to be part of UTM this morning. All right. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to those who ask questions. Thank you to the moderator. Thank you to all. Yeah.
Alright. Okay. So, you want to take a picture, or perhaps is it okay?
Sure.
Okay. Perhaps we take for 10 seconds.
Alright.
As fast as we can. Okay.
use 5 hours.
Okay. I think, okay. Alright. Okay, Encik Warin. Okay, Zul? Are we done?
Okay. Ambil gambar.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, baru keluar. Okay.
Alright. I think are we done now? I really need to go now because if not, the school gate will be closed.
Okay.
Alright. Okay. Bye.
Hope to see you soon. Okay.
Okay. Bye. Assalamualaikum.